Let's grab a squash from last year's butternut squash harvest. And the reason I wanted to show you this squash is because this squash is 1 year old and it's perfectly fine. As you can see, the stem is very old, and this preserves really, I won't say preserve because there was nothing done to this. All I did was allowed it to actually go to full maturity on the vine. Harvested this, allow it to have that nice dark color, and the skin, you shouldn't be able to push your fingernail through it. And that's how I check to make sure that this squashes are ready. So this saves up to a year. I'm about to harvest my butternut squashes. These are also ready. It's sitting on the vine. The tendril is dried out, as you can see, so it's ready to go. And I'm ready to harvest and put it on my wire rack so it can cure, not in direct sun, just in a ventilated area where the airflow is prevalent there, and allow it to cure properly before I store it up. So you don't need anything to add or take away from these butternut squashes. There's a varying amount of varieties in the types of butternut squash, and so I prefer to grow these as far as storage is concerned, where you don't have to do anything to preserve it. You want to make sure you cut the stem long enough so that you don't have any issues. You want to make sure there's no bug bites or any holes or anything of such nature when you're storing these up, and they store pretty well. This is 1 year old. Last season I grew these, and now this season I have butternut squash that are actually ready to be harvested. I don't need them right now to use them as food. I do have some different squashes and pumpkins that I have vacuum sealed and frozen as a way of preserving it, and I still have this one from last year. So I think this is my best variety of squash. Not necessarily my best tasting one, even though these taste really good. My best one to preserve without any type of intervention, so that they would stay safe and that they would be able to last a really long time, because a year for squash is long term for me, and so I prefer this variety. It's a drier variety. It's less moist than the pumpkin type varieties and the squash that have more of a water content in it, and so I prefer these one for that specific reason. So if you're growing squash and you're thinking about preserving food, and you don't want the headache of worrying or wondering what next to do with it or how to go ahead and preserve it, grow some of these different butternut squash varieties, because they last a very long time. Like I said, this is 1 year old and it lasts a very long time. I'm going to be using this next. The ones in the freezer are going to stay in the freezer. I'm not going to be freezing any this year. Whatever I harvest, I am going to put it on my shelf to cure and save them that way, and I'll eat them as the time goes along. What stays in the freezer is going to stay there and be frozen until I'm ready for them. But for the ones that I grew this year, we're going to be eating them nice and fresh. This is all for now. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again on the next upload.